Hey, welcome back. We've got part 2 of our interview with Sean Patrick Griffin, Gaming the Game. It's a must-read if you're a sports bettor. Obviously, you know about Donaghy and the NBA scandal. We've got Sean Patrick Griffin joining us today. Let's talk some more about your book, Sean.
I'm ready.
Let's start with the NBA's involvement or lack of involvement with your information gathering. Speak to that, if you would.
Well, obviously, from the earliest days of my research, I reached out to the NBA asking them, and I also reached out to the NBA Referees Association, asking them for interview subjects and for data. I had a few ideas in mind of what I wanted to look at, and from day one, they refused to entertain my questions, and they also never were willing to provide data. And even after Game in the Game came out, a reporter asked David Stern during All-Star Weekend about my book, and all he had to say was that he would look into my findings. But since I've never, to this day, as I'm speaking to you, I've never spoken to anybody from the NBA.
Well, as you know, the NBA would spend millions of dollars never to let information to the public that an NBA or a lone wolf, as you said, was able to fix games. Okay, talk about Batista, degenerate gambler. He was on Oxycontin as these events were taking place, correct?
Yes. Well, just with respect to the degenerate gambler, I would only point out that he had been doing this for 20 years. And so typically, at least for me, when I think of degenerate gambler, I think of somebody who's actually addicted to gambling and is costing their family or their social set harm. This is simply what he woke up every day and did going back to the 1980s. So and also the clients he worked with, these are the big time multimillionaire gamblers, and they never would have enlisted his services if they thought he was a degenerate who was going to lose money or not be reliable. So, but as far as being addicted to prescription pills, he absolutely was by the time spring of '07 took place. Okay,
2 more things before I let you go. First of all, Donaghy on this program said he tried to quit. He tried to call it quits, said it was becoming too much in his head. It was personal issues with his family, that he tried to walk away from the scenario that he had involved himself in. Now, you being a researcher of organized crime, he says that organized crime told him he could not quit, that they wanted him to keep doing it, or they were going to make a visit to his family in Florida.
I love it. Again, it's a shame we have so little time. But first of all, let's understand something, right? The FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office investigating this. You never heard them say any of that. Not to mention, let's always remember, Donaghy's claim is that he was done with betting. He didn't want to bet any more on NBA games that he'd been doing for the last 4 years. But it was that Jack Kincannon, his friend, forced him to, and then Jimmy Batista, he and Tommy Martino, his guys he knew from his childhood, had threatened him, right? Well, if you look at the FBI files, as I have done, what you find, in fact, is the FBI tells us that starting in February of '07, now this is a little inside baseball, so to speak, but Donaghy's claim is that he had stopped by December of '06, stopped betting on his games, and that he wouldn't have bet on games unless Batista had threatened him, right? That's what you just said. Well, Here's what happens, right? So the FBI tells us that, in fact, starting in February of '07, Donaghy reaches out to Jack Kincannon and again, and from February of '07 through April of '07, Donaghy is betting on his own games with both men. And in fact, when Batista goes into rehab on March 18, 2007, which is when Donaghy claims he stopped betting because, he was so glad that Batista and the mob were no longer forcing him to bet. Well, what happens? If you go and look at the files and see what Tommy Martino and other pro gamblers were saying, they say that Donaghy fought with them when they tried shutting down the scheme. Wow. And beyond that, by the way, the whole issue of Donaghy being forced by the mob, if anyone ever has a chance, go to my blog about this, where I actually list what the actual judge says about this issue. Far from being an extortion scheme where Donaghy was the poor pawn involved in this, she says that Donaghy was more culpable than the other 2 conspirators.
Wow. All right, in closing, I got to stick up for Las Vegas, but brother, in your book or in your blog, I'm paraphrasing, okay? You were talking about the Vegas alarm system, which you are accurate that there is a system in place for large line moves, okay? But then you go on to say that you believe that Vegas looked the other way, scrambling to get in on the sure thing themselves, referring to these Donaghy basketball games.
Well, here's why. After I did my line analyses, right? So I not only investigated line moves in Vegas sports books, I also investigated line moves offshore. And so naively, this shows you how naive I was when I took on this project, I contacted people in sports books offshore and in Vegas about their assessments of the line moves. And what did I hear from offshore? They knew all about this, and they were profiting from the scheme. What did I hear from Vegas? Oh, if that had happened, we would have known. To which I said, well, wait a second. I'm not asking hypotheticals. I'm reproducing your betting line moves from your sports book. And what did I hear? That couldn't happen. And so what I wrote in the book is there are only two explanations for that. One is that they're incompetent, which is not going to be good for business. Or two, like the offshore sports books, they were profiting like other pro gamblers. They saw the line moves and simply copied them. Either way, it's insulting for me as a researcher to tell a sports book, look, here are the betting lines from your sports book, and them to tell me, oh no, that can't be right.
Sean, you're a very interesting interview. We appreciate your time today. Sean Patrick Griffin, his book, Gaming the Game. It's a whole different look at the Tim Donaghy NBA scandal. Sean, I'm inviting you right here on the World Wide Web to come on with me. Split screen, Donaghy, Sean Patrick Griffin, along with yours truly. Do you accept?
I'd love it.
Sounds good, brother. We appreciate your time today. Hey, I'm Pat Williams. You have been watching Don Best TV.